Is your practice tired of wrestling with insurance denials, deciphering EOBs, and watching your revenue slip through the cracks? You are not alone. Welcome to The Claim Game, the podcast designed to cut through the confusion and provide you with the best practices for revenue cycle management success. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and we've been with people just like you in the trenches. Each week, we'll break down complex billing processes, share real-world solutions from practices like yours, and ask questions of the game makers and changers of healthcare so you can take control of your revenue. Let's turn those claim denials into deposits and help you return to focusing on patient care. It's time to win the claim game.
All right, welcome back to the Claim Game. And as a reminder, we're going through the different best practices for your revenue cycle. And last episode, we laid out the board, the game board with the 6 domains of billing. And these are your key board territories. Mastering each one of these territories is critical to manage your revenue and to make sure that you're winning at revenue cycle management. We're going to spend each episode zooming into each territory to provide specific strategies within these domains, revealing the winning ways to navigate the board with ease and confidence, ultimately claiming victory for your practice's bottom line. So as a quick reminder,
if you missed the initial setup of the board and want to understand the full scope of the board and what in the world the 6 domains of billing are and how they work together, be sure to check out episode 1 for that complete overview.
So today's RCM, revenue cycle management category, is payer selection, insurance company selection.
Right. So we're in the credentialing territory right now. And so how do you pick the right payers for your practice? So we're going to get ready now to analyze the unique challenges and discover kind of the optimal moves to conquer this very first step in credentialing. So many healthcare providers select insurance payers really based on impressions from colleagues and hearsay. And so what we're going to do today is advocate for something a little bit more strategic, and that really entails aligning your insurance choices with your long-term practice vision.
That's right. One of the things we see a lot at Practice Solutions, and we deal with quite a bit, are practices that they need billing. Mm-hmm. And we ask them, how many insurance companies are you credentialed with? And maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but we're oftentimes surprised by how high that number is. 12,
or just
20.
I don't know.
A
lot. I don't know.
Yeah, and largely because they are throwing spaghetti at the wall.
Yeah.
And they're hoping that volume equals volume. And we're here to dispel that myth.
So let's talk about strategy. There are 2 stages of strategy. First, you have to define what we're going to call your insurance mix, which is the number and type of payers and your balance of insurance payers versus private pay. And then secondly, the second stage is identifying specific insurance companies that fit your strategy. So we'll have strategy and we'll have insurance mix. Before anything else, in order to really pick a good insurance mix and to even start talking about payer selection, you really need to clarify your practice goals. How many hours do you want to work? What are your revenue targets? Do you have a growth plan? Understanding your ideal practice helps you evaluate every choice that you make for your practice, including insurance, by asking the simple question, does this move me closer to my goals? Write them down. Clarity is key. And so in the show notes, we've actually made a little goal setting worksheet for you. If you don't already have practice goals, or it's been a long time since you've looked at them, or you don't have them all in one place, this is a great resource for you to just start by saying, what are my goals? What is my why? Why did I start this practice? Who am I trying to serve? That will help with the next part of this conversation.
Yeah, that's right. Because you don't want to build yourself a little profitable prison that you end up resenting. And so your insurance mix is a strategic decision as part of this curriculum, if you will, on revenue cycle management best practices. We've been interviewing some of the game makers and game changers the folks who influence the game makers in credentialing to get more insight into how the game board is designed. So in round 4, you're going to hear from one of my good friends. He's a newer friend. His name is Dan King, and he specializes in private practice acquisition for those practices that are values aligned with his company, Fireside Strategic. So shout out to them. Go check them out. We don't want to spoil the episode, but there's a lot there. And we did learn something very interesting. Your practice from an enterprise perspective is more valuable if you have at least one insurance payer in your mix, even if a private pay practice is more profitable. So again, this little teaser for you, go check out episode 4. It's very surprising, but Dan King breaks all that down for us there. So go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of insurance mix, we're going to cover 3 common profitable approaches. Keep in mind that your practice goals will guide your choice. So the very first one is called the lean plan. The lean plan is about simplicity and maximizing revenue. The basic idea of this plan is work with the fewest possible in-network payers, specifically those with the highest reimbursement rates for your services. This could be just 1 or 2 top-tier commercial payers, plus you have a partial private pay load.
All right, Kathryn. So that makes sense. But let's say we had a clinician here who is perhaps just starting out, or maybe one is listening. How would you recommend determining what you just described as a top tier payer is?
Well, let me tell you, that used to be really difficult.
Yeah, that's right.
It used to be really difficult, but it's become much easier. So I'm going to talk to you about that a little bit. Consider, first of all, that top tier, according to this plan, is really only referring to reimbursement rate. There are certainly other considerations that we will get to later in this conversation. Revenue is one piece of picking your insurance mix. However, so finding out rates, due to the passing of the Lower Costs, More Transparency Act passed by the House in December of 2023, rates by location are becoming more transparent and are no longer proprietary. So it used to be that I would get a fee schedule for a practice and I would have a BAA on hand so that, there was confidentiality and HIPAA and all that good stuff. And I am now part of their entity in a sense.
Yeah.
And so I have to uphold the proprietary information that they are sharing with me for the sake of doing my job in billing. And so we have had providers for years ask me, hey, what does Blue Cross Blue Shield pay for this CPT code? And the answer has always been, I cannot tell you that information. Why don't you go ask a local colleague for a range? And then you have the problem of, well, what if I don't have a local colleague that I can talk to? What if they're not willing to share? What if they're not using the same CPT codes as I am? So the barriers become great. And because of this legislation, now we have access to local fee schedules.
That's right. We'll talk about how you can access that. So when we first heard about this through another one of the Game Maker interviews with Kathy Gilbert. Shout out to Kathy.
Episode 8.
Episode 8 to be continued, I suppose. But there's a few ways to do this. And there are companies that compile and organize this data for you. And a couple of those companies, right? So Serif, Clarify Health, and Trek Health, you're going to get a raw file, and then you need usually another piece of software to read the raw file. The bottom line is you can get the aggregated NPI data so that you can know with specificity what the rates are in your area.
By payer,
by NPI. So it's very useful. Feel free to check out any of those companies. They'll be in the show notes as well. But we recommend doing this no matter which insurance mix plans you choose. Right. I was just talking to a provider today, actually, and he was saying that he went to negotiate rates with a payer once, and they were trying to pay him like $65 a session when he knew another provider was getting paid, a clinician getting paid in the mid 100s. And so he was able to negotiate on that basis. That was very, very useful information.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the 3 companies we've mentioned that we're also going to put in the show notes, Serif, Clarify Health, and Trek Health, they actually interpret the data.
They do.
So you don't need to have a third-party software.
That's right.
They're the ones that will take those raw files that other people can't read and make it legible.
That's right. That's exactly right. So I would reach out to them directly and find out. But yeah, we recommend that for sure. So Kathryn, what is the main advantage of the lean plan as you've seen in your experience? And what do you see as the downside?
Yeah. So just as a reminder, the lean plan is picking one or two high reimbursement commercial insurance companies in addition to a private pay. This is really maximizing your revenue. So, main advantage, if it's not obvious, is that you're going to have a higher average reimbursement rate per patient visit. And maybe a little bit of a less obvious one is that when you take less payers, if I'm talking about only taking one or two insurance panels, that means that my administrative burden is so much lower because you don't have to be an expert at managing a bunch of payers. You just have to be an expert at managing one or two. And if they're the right partner for your practice, that can be very easy to do. We'll talk a little bit more about what some of those administrative burdens might be, but they can add up really quickly. And just keep in mind, every payer, while the process of revenue cycle management is the same from payer to payer, the keystrokes are not. And so when the keystrokes differ, now I have to learn how to do the same thing in a bunch of different systems. It becomes very difficult to do a lot of the administrative stuff. So I also want to say that even a small difference in rate per visit added up over a year can mean tens of thousands of dollars more in annual revenue for a solo practitioner compared to being in network with numerous slightly lower paying plans. It was, maybe you remember, I was talking to a provider in Chicago, and he very flippantly had said, "Oh, I don't mind if this payer pays me a few dollars less."
Yeah, you should. You should care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if you look at the math, and I'm not the math person, Kathryn knows this. People listening to this probably know this, but if I see 30 patients a day, right, at $80 per appointment, for some of you that's low, for some of you that might be high, who knows? How much less would you really make if you only collected $75 per appointment? Help me out here, Kathryn. What's the math look like?
Well, that would be comparing, let's say 5 days a week, you have 30 patients at $80 appointment, and we're not going to take any vacation. Let's just say 52 weeks a year. That comes out to $624,000.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Let's take just $5 off per appointment.
Okay.
30 patients a week, 5 work days a week, $75 per appointment at 52 weeks a year. That's $585,000.
And our first number was
$624. So it's a $39,000 difference for the exact same work.
Yeah, that's a huge difference.
And I think that's the key to it too, is like your output is not any different.
Yeah, that's right. And that's pretty discouraging. I mean, that's like the difference for like a whole, perhaps admin, depending on where you're located and you're listening to this, but that might be a salary.
$40K could be a base salary.
Yeah, it could be a base salary for a biller or an admin or an assistant or, what have you. So yeah, that is definitely worth considering.
Yeah.
Sure. When speaking about the advantage for your administrative burden, one thing that's really important to note is that if you courtesy bill for out-of-network insurances, that counts as a payer on your insurance aging report that you have to manage.
Yeah.
It's not a set it and forget it situation. No, it doesn't lower your reimbursement rate necessarily, but it does increase your administrative burden, which is, by the way, a cost to your practice. Kathryn, what is profit again? What is profit defined as?
Revenue minus expense.
Yeah. So when revenue goes up, revenue goes up and expenses go down, you have more profit to do what your practice is here to do. And so you are going to increase your expenses the more they're chasing courtesy bills out of network.
So that's what courtesy billing does. It basically means you are going to treat them as if they're an in-network patient. You're going to, hopefully you're still going to collect 100% upfront, but if you don't, and you're waiting for insurance to reimburse anything or for the claim to process, it's going to show up on your aging report as a claim that you need to follow up on. So our recommendation, if you're going to see people out of network and you don't want it to impact your administrative burden significantly, consider one of two options: collecting 100% upfront from the patient as if they're private pay, and then having you can still submit a claim on their behalf, but still courtesy billing, and then having the out-of-network reimbursement assigned to the patient. So that means that the payment, if there is any payment coming, and likely there isn't because this is out-of-network, and unless they have really excellent out-of-network benefits, they probably won't receive anything. But if they do, it would go directly to the patient so that you do not have to follow up on these claims. You do not need to wait for money to come in. It would really just be a reimbursement to the patient and a courtesy, which is why it's courtesy billing.
Yeah.
Or you can use super bills instead of courtesy billing, because the moment you courtesy bill out of network, you have to manage it on your aging. Now, you might manage it by closing it right away because you've collected 100%. That's an option. That's what we're recommending. And this will be true. This philosophy on out of network is going to be true no matter if you pick the lean plan or either of the next two plans that we're going to tell you about.
Yeah. So this is the difference between having 3 payers to manage on your insurance aging report and really an unlimited number of payers and claims to follow up on your insurance aging report. And then it becomes no surprise why some practices come to us in chaos.
Well, yeah, I talked to a practice recently that was like, I have like 30 payers. And I said, what do you mean you have 30 payers? Are you in network with that many payers? And he said, no, but I take a lot of out of network. And I was like, oh, well, that's why your aging report looks like that. Because really, anybody with any insurance then can walk in, unless in, Medicare, Medicaid, there are exceptions to that. But any commercial payer, yeah, I'm going to take your out of network. And now it's on my aging report. And now I have to manage it. Oh, my goodness.
It's a huge hassle. Don't do that to yourself.
Yeah. It could honestly be the difference in your practice needing 1 biller or needing 2 to 3 billers. Like, that is how much of an impact not having a good out of network insurance strategy can be.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, there's a lot of like financial upside. What are the downsides, or is there a downside to the lean plan, or is it just the golden goose that keeps laying eggs?
I mean, there's definitely a downside.
Okay.
And we've seen this happen a lot. The downside is that you're relying on fewer payers for your revenue stream. So you're not diversifying. So if one of them has issues, your cash flow could be impacted. Information on the highest rates can also be hard to get upfront.
Well, that's right. And we've, anybody listening to this who survived the Change Healthcare situation and is currently surviving the TRICARE situation, which I don't know if a lot of people know about. TRICARE switched administrators at the top of 2025. Maybe when this airs, they'll get paid. I don't know. But for a long time, those providers, those clinicians just didn't get paid. And so we know very intimately, and very intimately, how thin the veil is between payment and non-payment. So take the risk, I suppose. Take the one downside risk.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to note that payer issues like what's happening with TRICARE does not represent lost revenue.
Yeah, that's right.
And this is so common. It's just delayed. It's delayed revenue, which is usually the worst case scenario. We always say there's no such thing as a quote billing emergency. Let's say that this is the closest thing we get to a billing emergency.
Yeah, that's right. Or Change Healthcare. That was definitely a billing emergency.
Yeah. No one's died, right? That's what we mean by there's no billing emergency. And a lot of you work in very high risk environments. So this is not an emergency in the true sense of the word. But it's an emergency when you don't have money coming in. And so money is almost always just delayed. So having a really tight financial policy and being conservative in your financial practices by keeping a healthy emergency fund is always going to be recommended so that you can breathe easy through those inevitable delays.
For sure. Some of those have been really, really stressful. And we've seen a lot of businesses go under, especially in healthcare, right? And healthcare is a business. You have to keep that in mind because they can't weather the delays with insurance, right? So given that information, Kathryn, let's say I'm clinician Jeremy, what are my other options for an insurance mix?
Yeah. So after the lean plan, we have now the focused plan. And the focused plan helps serve specific patient populations. So that might be that might be a provider or a practice who has a goal of meeting the needs of people that are in the Medicare population, or that really want to work with veterans in the TRICARE population for military families while maintaining profitability. Because if you don't know, government payers usually reimburse less than commercial payers. So you balance your caseload with a mix of higher paying commercial insurance, private pay, and the government insurance necessary for your area of specialization, really your area of why we exist. So you may also consider identifying the insurance carrier for a local flagship company. Maybe you really want to serve your local blue collar workers, as another example. So here in Detroit, we might consider looking at what insurance company is carried by the automotive companies.
Yeah, that's
The
right.
Motor City.
Yeah.
So we would look to see so we want to serve the families maybe working at Ford, GM, Chevrolet. If we really have a passion for serving those most integral to our local economy, for example, that might be part of your why. And so it really is important to remember that goal setting is the first step in picking your insurance mix.
Yeah, that's
Now,
good.
you might not have a bleeding heart for one of those things, and that's okay. Maybe you really are just like, I want to run the most profitable business so that I can serve the most people. Well, maybe the lean plan's for you.
Yeah.
But if you on the other hand are really passionate about a very specific population, this would be our recommendation. So a general insurance mix target might be, I'm going to say 40% commercial, the high reimbursing commercial, 10% private pay, and 50% government goal related insurance patients. This requires really careful caseload management because you have to track your patient mix to hit those percentage targets in order to meet both your patient care and your financial goals. This is a more disciplined plan in patient intake. So you'd have a really good front desk person doing this. And it takes consistently collecting what you're owed.
Which is always very difficult, it seems like, but you can do this. What's the main advantage and downside or downsides of the focused plan?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think the advantage is obvious. It's built into the goal, but that you're creating an insurance mix that aligns with your passion for practice, which is really important, by the way, because it's very easy to lose sight of your why as the company gets years down the road.
Yeah, you're going to burn out if you don't have a very compelling why. And there's no shame in this, but start your practice and then realize it's not for you and then go work somewhere else. But those providers that go this route are usually very motivated. So stay connected to that. I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, exactly. The downside is that you have to be very careful about
Yeah.
managing your payer mix. And that takes a lot of fine tuning. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how to do this well later in the conversation. Identifying your payer mix and then managing it, we're going to talk about in a little bit.
So put a little mental bookmark there. So you said earlier, Kathryn, that we have 3 plans. We have a lean plan, top tier insurance payer, usually commercial, hamburger plan, or no, focus plan. I gave it away. So you all didn't hear that. So then it's the focus plan. And then what is our third plan?
Oh, I wonder. It's the hamburger plan. Okay, why is it called the hamburger plan? Because for a long time I was like, what? The hamburger plan?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's right.
this involves being in network with 1 or 2 high reimbursing insurances similar to lean plan, but also intentionally billing out of network for many others, which we warned against, but we also told you the right way to do that. The benefits include seeing patients with out-of-network coverage and more flexibility with your rates for these patients, since you're not bound by out-of-network contracts. So you can sliding scale all you want with those out-of-network or not. Up to you. But we call it the hamburger plan because of the mix of In-N-Out, which sounds like the popular In-N-Out burger fast food.
Yeah,
joint.
shout out to In-N-Out. It's amazing. It's incredible. West Coast is the best coast.
They are not our sponsor for this episode.
They are not. No, they're just really good.
Fun.
Go get yourself some fries.
I did not grow up around an In-N-Out, and Jeremy did, and so I don't really get the craze. But.
Yeah, they're amazing. It's okay. So go get yourself some In-N-Out if you're listening on that side of the country.
Okay. So this is probably our least preferred strategy, which is why it is our third option. There's still administrative load for out-of-network billing, and success really hinges on your practice's ability to collect effectively from patients at the time of service, as reimbursement from the insurer to the patient is not guaranteed to cover your full fee.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So what's the primary advantage and or downside of the hamburger plan?
Well, I would say the main advantage of the hamburger plan is perception. And as you know, perception is
reality. Perception is reality for sure.
So whether we like it or not, perception can be reality. And this applies to customer perception and experience. So if a customer thinks you look more helpful by taking their out-of-network insurance, they're more likely to see you even as an out-of-network client.
Yeah, here's a fun fact for you. So for certain healthcare verticals, you need to check on this for whatever healthcare service you provide. But patients are more willing, like 4 times more willing to follow their preferred provider out of network. That's is that 400%? More likely, is that what that is? 4 times 400%?
Oh,
More likely to follow their clinician,
I want to say yes.
their provider? Yeah, maybe.
So you just might have an easier time building a caseload.
Yeah, that's right. For sure.
I mean, the main downside, which I'm going to just beat the dead horse on, is the administrative burden. Make sure you have an out-of-network insurance policy that compensates for that administrative burden, like we discussed earlier in this conversation.
Yeah, no horses were harmed in the making of this episode. So
I'm like, maybe that's not a good phrase to
who
use.
knows?
I don't know.
With each of these plans, whether you resonate with the lean plan, the focus plan, or the hamburger plan, it seems like there's two things, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, to keep in balance. One, always keep your practice goals in the front of your heart and mind. And two, your profitability. Why is that?
This episode was brought to you by Insurance Billing Basics, steps for therapists to successfully take insurance. As mental health clinicians, you're experts at patient care. But let's be honest, insurance billing isn't usually covered in grad school. We've felt that educational gap for a long time, and that's why we poured years of billing expertise into one game-changing resource, our book, Insurance Billing Basics by Jeremy Zug. Think of it as the crash course in revenue cycle management you never got to take, like putting on corrective lenses to truly see how insurance works and how your practice's billing can improve. Whether you're already taking insurance and want to feel more confident in the basics, or you're ready to finally take the plunge and start, this book is for you. It's truly the best $20 investment you can make for your practice. Ready to gain clarity and take control? Get 15% off Insurance Billing Basics today by clicking the link in the show notes. Yes. So the two things you have to keep in balance are your practice goals, which is why we have that initial worksheet for goals, and then your profitability. And we have actually developed a really helpful resource to walk you through, first and foremost, your target hourly rate goal.
Okay, say that again, because that's a really important thing you just said. Say it one more time.
Your target hourly rate goal, right? Which in order to do, you need to have part of the worksheet really analyzes your expenses and what you need to operate. It looks at what you want to take home. It looks at your taxes. It looks at what you want to reinvest in your business. We will actually show you this resource in a little bit, but it will help you do that. It will help you then analyze the fee schedule of an actual payer. Say, is this fee schedule going to help me hit that actual goal? That's very important. Or is this mix going to help me? Because maybe one of them doesn't. Maybe your goal, your Y company, does not hit your goal. That is okay. That is okay. All that matters is that the mix meets your goal. So it's very tactical. It does take some data analysis and time in order to fill it out accurately, but it should really tell you exactly what to target and if the payer you're analyzing will help you reach that target. So I want to show you this resource. And for those of you listening, I will do my best to talk you through the resource. Take a listen. Okay, so the Identify Your Ideal Insurance Mix worksheet has different parts to it. The first part is where you're going to calculate your target hourly rate. In order to do that, you first need to look at your operating expenses. And so we've included this little chart for you to enter in different expenses by categories. We've got, software and subscriptions, website and domain hosting, continuing education, insurance, office supplies, rent, utilities. So you're going to fill this out as comprehensively as you can, and there's a couple places for other, and it's going to tell you what your total annual operating expenses are. And then in step 2, you need to determine what your desired annual income is, and then you'll have to do a little bit of math to determine what your tax burden is going to be. And the other thing that you want to identify is any reinvestment goal that you want to put money back into your practice. So that's going to tell you your annual revenue goal. And then you're going to determine in step 3 your desired hourly rate. In order to do that, you first need to determine your total billable hours for the year for all of your staff. So you're going to put in all of your staff. We have up to 10 spots. If you need more, we can get you more. And then billable hours per week, work weeks in the year, and then it will tell you your annual billable hours by staff, and it will give you a composite down here. And that will automatically return your desired 8. So this is essentially doing some math at the top to say, what do you need in order to operate your business? What would you like to make, and what additional money are you going to need? And then what is your manpower? And it's going to spit out for you what you need to make per hour in order to make those other things a reality. And then it's going to analyze your actual services. So part 2, analyze your services. You're going to list your top 5 to 10 most frequently performed services or procedural codes right here. And then for each service, you're going to record the average billable time it takes you to complete it using a decimal point. Your cash rate for that service, about how many number of units you use of that service per month, and it's going to tell you what percentage of your total appointments that service represents. Now you will obviously need to do a little bit of math here. I would not guess on these. You can do an educated guess looking at some data, but if you really want this tool to work properly, put in as accurate of information as you can. And then you have part 3, your fee schedule analysis. This section helps you analyze the potential revenue based on an insurance company's fee schedule and your practice mix. If you don't have a fee schedule and you are just trying to decide if you should use this payer, that is where you're going to use the data published by Serif or Trek or Clarify Health, which we talked about earlier in this episode. So you can look up the fee schedule and enter them. These are going to auto-populate. So on the service section, it's going to auto-populate the CPT codes that you've already mentioned, and you just need to put in the fee. And it's going to give you a composite for that specific insurance company. You're then in part 4 going to take that and enter it here. So let's say it was Cigna. You're going to put Cigna in the insurance company name, and you're going to type in the composite rate that it spit out for you. And then you're going to go back to part 3 and you're going to fill it in for another payer, and you're going to come back down here, and now you're going to say this was Blue Cross Blue Shield and that was 148.23. I don't know. I'm making this up. So you're going to do this for up to 6 payers is what we have space for, and you can include your cash rate as one of your options. And then you get to play around with the percentage, and it will give you a final blend composite rate based on what percentages you mess with. So I'm just going to add one in, cash pay 150. And we're going to make this, 50%, 15%, okay, that's 65, 35%. That would give you a final composite of 135.02, and it's going to compare that to the desired annual rate, hourly rate that you determined in part 1. This will fill in automatically, and it's going to tell you what the difference is and spit out your blend at the end. It's a super helpful tool. We've seen it used many times. So use it. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you wish this tool had. We'd love to know more.
It seems like there's a common thread in all the insurance mix options that you've recommended, that we recommend, that's in the book that's behind us, Insurance Billing Basics. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. You recommend a small number of payers.
Yes, the common thread is that fewer can be better when aligned with your goals. So yes, these strategies do include limiting your in-network participation. And while that seems like we said at the beginning, the myth of more panels equals more patients being selective actually offers significant advantages.
And lay those out for us. We can't say there are advantages and not tell us. So what advantages are there?
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned many of them already, but here is a quick summary of the 4 main advantages. 1, reduced administrative burden. Fewer insurance companies means simpler billing, less paperwork, and fewer policies to master. If you don't know, the contractual obligations of one payer differ from one to the next.
Yeah, widely.
Widely.
Really widely.
Different timely filings, different, I don't know. It's a lot.
All kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Who you contact, whether they're going to be responsive or not. I mean, it just really, really matters. Yeah, what else?
The second advantage is that you're just going to have more control. You have more freedom to set private pay rates and define your ideal patient mix rather than being dictated by numerous different insurance contracts.
Yeah, that's great. What else?
This one's my favorite.
Okay, great.
Easier scaling. If you want to grow, the fewer payers you take, the better. I'm going to show a really nifty image also from our book, but basically it has 1 provider and 10. Oh, wait, no, it goes the other way. I'm sorry. 10 providers, 1 insurance, or 10 providers, 10 insurance. Think about it. 10 times 10 is what?
100. I know that one.
100.
Yeah.
So it's the difference between submitting 10 insurance panels for 1 payer and 100 applications.
Yeah, it's really onerous.
It's significant.
Yeah.
It's significant. It's so much to manage, and there's so much room for error. And just as a reminder, the color of dye that you put in the credentialing part of the board will influence everything that comes down the line. Everything. So do yourself a favor and don't put yourself in a position where you're going to have human error as just this massive gaping possible
At
issue.
the very least, go slow. Go slow. Don't do this quickly. Please do everybody a favor for sure.
I really can't even identify the benefits of saying take more payers.
Yeah.
Like the cons so outweigh the pros. It might take just a touch longer to build your caseload, but I promise it's worth it.
It's way worth it for sure. So I can do math. We did 10 times 10 is 100. And you mentioned 3 benefits, 3 advantages. You said there were 4, so there's 1 missing. Is there one missing?
I think there is 1 more. And I think that truly you will have better patient relationships if you take less payers, because a deep understanding of a few insurances allows you to communicate really clearly with your patients about their benefits and responsibilities. If you're doing eligibility and benefit checks for 2 payers, it is really, I can confidently say, you can master the eligibility and benefit process so that every time you run an eligibility and benefit check, it is accurate.
Yeah, that's right.
I cannot confidently say that if I have 15.
Yeah, and then you have turnover in the billing department.
Yeah.
And then your clinician gets mad because they're not getting paid. Or your patients start calling you because they got a bill a year and a half later, right? These are issues that when you're starting your practice, you go, oh, I don't have those issues. I'm not going to feel those. Then you make this error. You fall down this little canyon, and then you realize the hole you're stuck in. I mean, that's why we're saying all this stuff, because
it's hard to back out of it.
It's way harder to climb yourself out of there than just saying, I'm going to avoid that altogether, right? So if you're new to private practice and those things I just mentioned, if those scare you, do yourself a favor. Pick a lean plan for sure. Yeah. So are there other considerations when choosing an insurance company to be a part of your insurance mix?
Yes. But before I get into some of the other considerations, I want to issue a caution regarding caseload management. I told you I was going to give you a little bit more information about that. If you are in network with specific insurances, caseload management can get sticky because you are going to be required contractually to take on patients that carry the insurance you're in network with. But there are a few ways to honor your contractual obligations while managing your caseload. Okay. The first option is to add providers. If you decide that you are going to limit your insurance company, I'm going to limit insurance company A, and it's going to be only 35% of my practice's insurance mix. And provider 1 hits 35%. You can add another provider and continue honoring your contract that way until that provider is at 35%. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
That is option 1. Or 2, let's say you're like, Kathryn, I am not able to just hire providers whenever I want. I can't do that. Totally get it. So you can contact the insurance company and let them know that you are full. You hit 35%. They don't need to know what percent, but you hit 35%, you're considering yourself full. Then if you need to add more in the future, you would just need to inform them that you're taking patients again. The caution with option 2 is just to make sure that you do not keep your practice at full on the insurance company's website. For example, they might say not taking patients. You don't want to do that for more than a year, or they're going to start to say, why do I have a contract with this provider? However, I think if you call them and just say, hey, we're still full, but if they can see that you're also still seeing patients within their network, they probably won't have any issue with that at all.
And this is something that makes a relationship with your in-network insurance companies really important. Now, I know there's a lot of providers listening that hate insurance. Okay, I get that. But there are some insurance companies that are in this for mission-driven reasons and that their values align with you. And I want to make it clear that you should not misalign or provide any malintent toward these folks. You should, if you're going to be a network, you should build a relationship with them so that you can have these conversations with a touch more fluidity and that they know you and they can trust you and you're going to build yourself into the bedrock of their network.
But you also know them and who to call.
That's right. Well,
which again, imagine having 15 of those to manage instead of just 2.
Unbelievable.
Way, way easier. Okay, so now for those other considerations to identify your ideal insurance partners. And I want to do my best to do this quickly. The question, which insurance is best, is practice specific. And here's how we find your best partners. First, let's start with an external research project of sorts. Consult colleagues. Ask trusted local healthcare providers in your field about their experiences. Which payers are easy to work with? How prompt are payments? What are typical reimbursement ranges, which is less important if you do the research yourself. How easy is the portal?
Yes, the portal.
And portals are not created equal. Some portals are excellent. They give you great eligibility information. They give you great payment information. Others are just obtuse.
Yeah, they were made by a German Shepherd who could type. I mean,
we're going to keep moving. You're right. Scour insurance company websites, similar to portals. Look for provider sections. How easy was it to find the information that you needed? Crucially, are they accepting new providers in your medical specialty and area? A closed panel means a denied application, so you might as well not even submit it in the first place. But in general, the easier it is to find the information you're looking for, probably the better partner they're going to be. They're communicating clearly. You might have to call to get the information about if the network is open. Next, evaluate market dominance and rates. Again, we've already said this. And there are those 3 companies, Serif, Clarify Health,
and Track.
Use those companies to do that. Find out who is really dominating the area because you're going to grow your patient caseload a little bit quicker that way. And just make sure that the rates are favorable for you. Now look internally. So those are the external things to do. Internally, is the insurance right for your practice? With the external data in hand and your ideal insurance mix in hand, reflect on your practice. This part is not easy for everybody. Not everybody wants to do this part. There are some considerations here. Time. Ask yourself this question. Will this payer be efficient to work with or a drain on your limited time? Consider their customer service and their claims processing. Questions you can ask in the external research, by the way. Second thing, cost and revenue. Is the potential revenue worth the time and effort of credentialing and ongoing management? Another question to ask externally, how long did it take you to get in network? Because what they publish might not be the reality of the situation. How many times did you have to resubmit, etc.? How hard was their application to understand? Next, workload. Can you or your staff realistically handle the administrative demands of another payer without burnout? Yes. And then morale. Just again, you might think this is totally woo-woo, and that's fine, but it will help some of you. When you think about partnering with this company, does it feel like a positive step or does it fill you with dread? Let's say you already have an insurance mix and everybody's been hyping about this one that you feel like, okay, I just have to get on the bandwagon. Close your eyes for a minute. What does it make you feel? Choose a partner that aligns with your well-being and your practice vision. If you need help doing this, we're going to add a resource here for evaluating a company with those external and internal questions to get answered.
Yeah. So at this point, let's just recap what we've heard so far. So to recap, choosing insurance partners is a vital strategic decision for any medical practice, any independent practice. 1, anchor to your goals. Define your ideal practice first. 2, select your mix strategy. So choose an approach like the lean focused hamburger plan that aligns with these goals, and use the awesome resource we made to help you decide whether your pricing is putting you out of business or keeping you in business.
I mean it. This resource is awesome.
It's really
Not
good.
trying to toot our own horn. It's a really cool
It's very
resource.
good. Consider fewer is better. Strategic limitation often trumps casting a wide net. And research. Investigate potential payers. Evaluate them against your internal needs, time, cost, workload, morale. Taking a thoughtful approach helps you select insurance partners that support rather than hinder your journey to a thriving practice.
That's absolutely right. Yeah. Okay. So that wraps up the RCM best practice segment of this episode. But we always have one more segment, at least one more segment.
At least one more.
And that is the case study card. We always look at case study cards to help us play the game better. So I know Jeremy picked one out for today.
I did pick one out. We're not going to use real names. I actually have 2 picked out, but for the sake of time, we're only going to do 1 because they're also very similar. So I wanted to tell you the story of Dr. Eleanor Vance. And this is a practice. No.
You just picked that up.
It's a fake name, real person.
Dr. Eleanor Vance.
Yeah, there's like
if that's your name out there, it's not about you.
It's not you. Sorry, Eleanor. Dr. Vance. No, it's a fake name. But a story based on a real actual clinician that we worked with. But this was a clinician that located in Louisville, Kentucky, beautiful Louisville, Kentucky. And as the sun would dip behind the skyline in Louisville, she would look at her P&L, and she was not weary at all. In fact, she was pretty pumped because her P&L was quite healthy and her practice was thriving and her clinicians were happy. And by the way, that's not an accident. And when she first hung her shingle, she heard it from all of her friends too, right? That siren song of take everybody, take all the insurance companies. And she had some dogged grit because she put her head down and she knew that there was going to be a cost to everything. Bless her analytical mind. She saw her area. She knew the demographics. She had done her research. And Louisville is a really big tapestry of folks and community. And there's one big payer there. We don't have to mention who the payer is, but there was one major payer in the water that Louisville's fish swim in, right? To use a weird analogy. But she knew with precision that was the one payer, that she was going to take. And so it was a really bold strategic decision, but she only took one payer. No other acronym-laden payer was going to do it, and they would remain firmly out of network. And she didn't even submit super bills or courtesy bills or anything. It was just don't take them. And again,
that's a policy you can choose.
Her policy, and her colleagues did not like that. That was not a very popular decision that she made. But again, in the background is they're yelling diversify, and they're working late and nights and weekends and missing soccer games and important life events. She goes home at 4:30 every single day and doesn't worry about much. Her niche was child psychological testing. This was a practice in that space, but this can apply to any of you in a variety of spaces. But she became the expert in her area with one payer, and everybody with kiddos knew where to go. There was no wrestling with idiosyncratic claim portals. Her front office is clean, lean, revenue generating machine. And that's how they operate. Referrals flow in. She has no...
Can I just butt in here for a second?
For sure.
When you pick a strategy that makes you less stressed, you can become the best at what you do. And the referrals will flow in, because when you spend all of your time, I've seen this over and over and over again, when you spend all of your time and your mental energy thinking about billing issues, which a lot of practice owners do, you are not focusing on how to make your practice better. And I think Eleanor was her name, right?
Mhm.
I think what Eleanor did well is that she got to spend time working on her business
Yeah, that's right.
because she chose a very principled stance here.
That's right. And it didn't happen overnight. But let me tell you, from when we were working with her, she outgrew us, to be quite frank. And she's still there.
Which she should.
She's
Bring
doing
it in-house at some point. It's going to serve you better.
it. Is. She's cranking away, but she had no complaints. We didn't talk to a single clinician there about pay or reimbursement or billing issue, this or that. They all knew what was expected. And some of those clinicians are still there. I mean, years later. I mean, she has very low attrition. Her clients don't complain. She has a wonderful work-life balance. And I know I'm painting it to sound rosy. I'm sure she has her own operational bumps. But you can take that and contrast it with some of the folks that take 30 insurance payers, and they're stressed and they don't know what to do, and
they don't know why something's hung up. Yeah, they can't. They're taking work home every night, or they're missing every soccer game and every meal. And they're thinking about downsizing their personal caseload to take on some of the billing burden. How many times have you heard it?
100 times. 100 times. And this clinician, that was never a concern. I mean, we never got a single late night email, call, text. It was a very stable situation. And if I were a clinician, if you were a clinician, she is the exact kind of person you'd want to go work for. Confident, calm, focused, direction-filled leader.
Who has resolve.
And their practice is doing really cool stuff. So it was a really good practice for us to watch these, we say they're theories, but they're not really theories. I mean, we got to see this play out in real time with a real practice, with real clinicians and patients, and achieve real results. So
we're not trying to talk ourselves out of billing work, but we're just trying to tell you what we've seen work over time.
Yeah, we want to help you in this podcast win a revenue cycle management. And
we're not doing that one.
No, we're not going to do the second one because we're going to run long. But that's really all we had for you today on today's episode of The Claim Game. We really hope that every piece of content that you interact with, every podcast you listen to from us, gives you a clearer path for selecting your insurance game partners. So join us next time on The Claim Game podcast. What are we going to be discussing?
Initiating the game, which is our way of saying, how do we understand the credentialing process? What is involved in the credentialing process? It's really an overview because we're going to actually break down each step in later episodes as well. But until then, keep building the practice you envision. We'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed today's episode of The Claim Game, please take a moment to leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really helps new listeners to find us. Make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to The Claim Game on your favorite podcast app. Your feedback means so much to us. We want to provide valuable education about revenue cycle management. So if there's something we didn't cover in our topic that was a burning question for you, please let us know so we can try to get you the information you desire. You can find the links to all resources we mentioned in this episode in the show notes. And if you want to dive deeper into our resources, we have two places you can do that. First, you can go to our blog at practicesol.com/blog, where we have 8 years of educational blogs. If you want to learn more about what Practice Solutions does, reach out. We'd love to hear from you. Just go to practicesol.com to learn more and to connect with one of our awesome people on our team. Thanks for listening. We are Jeremy and Kathryn Zug, and this is The Claim Game. See you at the game table next time.